Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to have back in studio with us here and Make It Plain, this time for the podcast, our dear sister, Donna Hylton. Donna, welcome back to Make It Plain. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for having me back.
It's a pleasure to have you. You look great.
Thank you. It's been a heck of a year.
Really? Well, tell us from your perspective, why has it been a heck of a year for you?
Well, I think everything that's going on within the country that keeps us on our toes, right? You got to say woke.
Yeah.
With everything that's going on. And just like in New York alone, we were able to pass the most comprehensive criminal justice packet in the country. We still got some more, legislations to pass, but it looks good. At least we've gotten somewhere, Yeah. It took some time.
Yeah.
I wrote about one of them in my book, the domestic violence one, the DVSJA. And so after 10 plus years, we finally got that passed, and it's kicking off in January.
So for those who may not know about the DVSJA, tell our audience about it, what impact
so this,
that'll have.
It's called the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act. And what it is legislation that, women incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and our allies, supporters, Sister Mary Nerney, central to it, and formerly of the Correctional Association, Tamar, Kraft Stoller, and Jaya Vasadani, who have put all that together, and with the exceptional help, I have to give her a shout out, former Senator Ruth Hassel Thompson, who was basically the sponsor and champion of the bill in Albany, and she was part of it now getting passed. And so we finally got it passed. So what it will do is allow, it's for women and men, but our primary focus for women, because we know the vast majority in prisons and jails are there for abuse or trauma. And so what it'll do is allow them their cases to be revisited based on if they can prove some significant factors of abuse in their lives, which a lot can, but it's not like a get out of jail free card where, we had that like, oh, is everyone? No. You have to show that you have to, really have some significant showings of abuse and trauma and stuff that led you either you committed an act that was, against an abuser, or you were part of something that you had no control over, but it was based on your abuse. So we look forward to that, giving people a second chance.
To be clear, when we say the vast majority, your claim has always been, and it's been pretty much proven.
Oh, absolutely.
That the majority of women who are incarcerated have been victims of violence and or abuse.
Absolutely. I still know women and young women right now who are not telling people, like telling the John and Jane Q public, because it's still that shame, that stigma that comes with it. And, and I have to always reemphasize that women, especially women and girls who go through any type of abuse like that, start owning it and feeling like it's their fault. I felt like that for a long time. Like everything that happened was my fault. I caused everything to happen, because you start owning. It starts as a kid. Yeah. Kids can't process that, right?
Right.
So absolutely.
And that's the nature of victimization. I mean, and that's on it. If you think about it, I feel on a macro, Donna, when we look at ourselves as an oppressed people in this country, as black folk, how many things happen to us just as a race of people every day that we blame ourselves for? All
the time. We're taught that. From birth, we're taught that. And we have to look we call it generational curses, but we have some generational trauma. We have to recognize it's true.
And the system wants us to do that.
Absolutely.
It's y'all's fault. Pull yourself up by your bootstrap. No, right. I mean, that's not that simple. We know that stuff has an impact, and it is generational.
Absolutely.
Also, you've been working on getting Rikers Island closed.
Yes, I have. Happened myself and other leaders, of course, but I've been really strongly out in the front lines arguing. We've had some contentious kind of situations with those, who, believe in no new jails and all that other stuff, which is fine. They call themselves abolitionists, which they are. Definitely respect that. But, those of us formerly incarcerated, directly impacted, are also abolitionists. But those of us that have been leading the charge on this campaign to close Rikers are very, very honest and genuine when we say we know that crime is not going to stop overnight. People are going to do some stuff. Look at what happened to the young woman from Barnard this past weekend.
Yeah.
And look at the kids. Those are babies.
Yeah.
Those are babies. So, you got to think about that. They need time out someplace. So our focus is conditions of confinement. So we're not saying that we want 4 new jails. First of all, they already exist. There's nothing new about them. Only one will be new because they're switching the site in the Bronx. They already exist. We went, it actually was more like 18, 20 jails. And it went to 12 because Rikers Island is the last penal colony. And they already still had the 4 jails that exist. So what we're saying, shut all those other ones down and leave 4, we call them facilities in each borough, right, to deal with the issues at hand. But then what can we do differently now that Rikers Island has not been doing for a very, very long time?
In an ideal world, what would that be? What would be your prescription?
Is leave people in their communities so they can stay connected to if they have any kind of family or support, right? But if they
because that makes a difference.
Yeah,
that
you
can
absolutely
have
makes a difference.
Family. Some people think, let's be punitive, dismiss people from their family, take away from their family.
No.
That has an opposite effect, doesn't it?
Absolutely does. And so with that, that's why I try to, when I talk to people, I try to get them to understand, first of all, don't believe the hype. 95% of people that are in our prisons and jails are going to get out one day. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah,
and a whole thousands of others are out as well.
Right.
Just
That's
very
true.
similar, all this stuff. So how do you want somebody to come out? So our thing as soon as a person is going through the detention period and the trial, that the criminal, the legal system, as we call it, how are they to be treated? What support and services do they need? And so what we're saying is use the community-based organizations that are doing these programs, grassroots, and have them be a part of the system. Have them be there inside where they can get the services they need. No, it's not a response to, and I always say it, to drug addiction or whatever addiction, mental health or anything like that. Those are separate things, but it also
should be treated
and should be treated as such.
As health issues.
Absolutely.
Right.
But that's another thing. A lot of people from our communities don't even have proper health care,
Right.
and that does
Right.
a lot to a
Right.
person. Your body's not right. You
Right.
get caught up in some stuff, and it's
Yeah.
not an excuse. It's a reality.
Yeah.
So we're saying have these support services there. So as soon as a person walks in, they're preparing for their exit. No matter what goes on, they're preparing for their
I like
exit,
that.
and that's not what happens now.
To plan for and look toward
Long term.
leaving.
Yeah.
We were talking as you were coming in. I was reminding you that I spent half my life in D.C.
Yeah.
And I remember when Marion was mayor and the city could no longer sustain the prison system or the jail system. So they gave it back to that branch, that judicial branch, gave it back to the federal government and to Congress. And the debate then was now, well, then we're going to start sending D.C. people arrested and charged in D.C. all over the country, these federal institutions. And we were like, well, no, that's not the effect of that either, because you want people to be near their families and whatnot.
It makes a difference.
It makes a big
It
difference
makes
in
a
terms
difference.
of recidivism, doesn't it?
But you have those, absolutely. But you have those like, oh, well, don't do the crime, that if you can't do the time, or, oh, that's what you deserve. I mean, remember I talked about it when I was on the show last, that I've got death threats, I've got all that stuff because I speak up. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to continue to speak up and stand in my truth because we have been too comfortable with the way things have been, and that's why we are a slippery slope right now to hell.
Yeah.
Because look who we got running the country.
Well,
all this is tied together.
Well, tell us more from your point of view how it's all tied together, especially with him.
Because there's this ideology or whatever that only old rich white men know how to treat people and know what's right and what's wrong or whatever. No, we don't need that no more.
Right.
We need those young people. Outside of myself, we need people that have a different understanding in this 21st century and in 2020. We are not in 1820, neither are we in 1920. You know what I mean? So we are talking about we have to change the way we see things and understand things because the world is always changing. There's no such thing as climate control. Okay, all right. But in the meantime, our seas are rising, our glaciers are shrinking, right, causing the seas to rise. All these turbulent things, the storms that we have are lasting longer and are stronger. Yeah. So something's going on. So I'm just saying, like, even economically, like, to not recognize, I mean, to talk about people, first of all, and I got to give a shout out to Represent Congressman John Conyers at this moment. Amen. Because, you know, I just got to give it to him because he's not been recognized as he should be, you know, to bring certain legislation and to fight for us, you know. And I have to say this, being a Me Too person, you know, I've been arguing and fighting, and a whole lot of us have been fighting, like saying we you know, look at us, we're in prison now. We're in prison based on, you know, all the abuse and the sexual trauma, all this stuff that's happened to us, the rapes. And so, you know, it's become weaponized to me. And so we're taking out, you know, the people who have been laying groundwork for us and fighting these systems and this ideology that only old, white, rich men know what to do for us. You can't come into our communities and tell us what we need. Only we can tell you what we need. And as far as, you know, even for women, we tell you what we need. No, it's not all right to be groping my crotch. No, it's not all right to be pushing me up against the wall and taking kisses because you can, because, oh, you're this reality celebrity kind of nonsense that's going. You know what I'm saying? It's just this whole, the paradigms that have existed needs to be shifted and changed.
But to be clear, though, and when you speak of John Conyers, one of the reasons, I mean, let's be honest, he should have and would have had his body lay in state in the Capitol, too, as Dean of the House.
Absolutely.
But he was ousted. He was ousted on Me Too. So I don't want to just skip over that.
Yeah, no.
Because you said, you know, obviously you were Me Too as well. So as a black woman, victim of Me Too, a double victim, because you were incarcerated. I mean, that led to your incarceration. I mean, we all think about that, folks. We talk about Me Too. Me Too for black women ain't the same for white women. Me Too black women often end up in prison for being a victim of Me Too. Whoa. But
right. Exactly.
But no, I hear what you're saying, but I want you to expound on it a little bit more about how you still can honor John Conyers, absolutely, even though he was accused of Me Too. So, when I say it ain't the same as a Me Too victim saying it, so I want you to say it.
So how I look at it, and this is my personal, you know, view of it and analogy of it, that it's become so weaponized, right? And for me, and I know it's
you
not
mean the
easy
allegations.
for every, the allegations, right, of sexual misconduct, whatever they may be. And for me, I'm not looking to hurt you.
Right.
I'm not looking to hurt any person that abused me. I'm looking for how do we now do some restorative kind of justice kind of work. What would that look like? What that looks like is not taking an entire person's livelihood and history away from them, their work that they've done. Right, but looking at the issue, looking what that 1 act, 2 act, whatever it may be, and what's the problem there. We never look at the root causes, right? But we first just want to say, okay, guilty, that's it. Let's just off with their heads. You know what I mean? That's not, for me, a good response. I'm not looking to take people's livelihood or anything. I want people to own up to their actions. I want people to take responsibility. That's what it looks like for me. But how do we get there? It's not about stripping somebody of you know, the means that they need, you know, their livelihood. That, to me, it's just not where I feel that we should be going. We should not be weaponizing things that could be measures to get us to a healing society, a healed people.
What about Cosby? Same thing?
I feel same thing. I feel the same thing. I mean, and I have my questions on certain things too, because some people are retracting all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, you know, that wasn't the truth or whatever. But we hear this. It's like a person on death row. You know, they got all this stuff, all these allegations, all this proof, all this stuff. And then come to find out after you executed them, oh, we might have made a mistake. We might have missed something. Maybe we should have done this differently. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. But again, it's more impactful to hear you say that than me.
Yeah, of course.
Because, you know, when a dude defends another, I mean, I say it, but when a dude defends another dude. But actually, you know, just last week on The Daily Show, every week we have Meet the Black Press, and one of the lead stories that Dr. Ben Chavis brought up was, Cosby's appeal being overturned. He's got a chance at another appeal or something. But the same week, Harvey Weinstein pays a settlement. Cosby's in prison.
There's no fairness or equity in any of that, right? And so it's like a rush to judgment and a rush to basically just like cancel a person out. But it depends on the person, and it definitely depends on the person's skin color.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that that's wrong. But I don't feel like anything should be weaponized, used to like hurt. I think that there's some healing that needs to happen, but we can't do healing if we're too busy like punishing. You're not gonna get
But that's why you're here, and I believe, a whole lot of other folk feel called by God, but God has called people like you, and you specifically, at this moment. You are able to say that because you have been a beneficiary of restorative justice. You were written off. We just had the brother Curtis Flowers got off, and he's been tried with 6 times for murder. We know how many examples there are of unfair, and that's not to say who is or isn't guilty, because as you're saying, you can be guilty, right? You can be guilty, but you can still participate in something called restorative justice, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't. And I think you're right. Maybe it shouldn't have a politically weaponized agenda, because
and it only targets certain people.
It only targets. But think about how many people might be willing and able to come forward and atone and seek help for victims and abusers. See, because you don't see a single cat come forward and say, you know what, I did this myself.
Right, they're scared.
And I want to talk about my problem and how I can help other men solve their problem. There's no room for that.
That's it right there.
Because everything is punitive. And I mean, honestly, it's almost worse than prison, because, like you said, prison ends at some point. But when you are canceled and destroyed personally, you can't ever recover from that. And again, that's not to excuse anybody, but I think Kanye,
absolutely no excuse.
I think bringing up Kanye is a good point, because I didn't struggle with it. I said, listen, this man deserves, at the end of the day, John Conye's legacy is not going to be the mistakes he made, because the good things he did in life was so much greater than the mistakes. As bad as the mistakes were, I wasn't there. I can't judge him on that. And nobody else did either, because he didn't stand trial. But that's the case. Do you think, though, or well, I should put it this way, what impact, Donna Hylton, do you think it has on people who have been in the criminal justice system, or who've had loved ones in the criminal justice system, when they see the man at the top commit all kind of crimes, and his lawyer and everybody around him, and nothing happens? Isn't that, again, back to our own collective oppression, isn't that a form of trauma as well? When I can look up and literally see, I can get put in jail on a paperclip, but he... I mean, it's just buck.
It's like marijuana right now. It's like marijuana. So, it's legalized in a whole lot of our states, right? And to the point where, like, no one's going to prison for it. But we still have people languishing in prison for marijuana.
Yeah.
So it's like, and the money that people are making is great. Us Jamaicans been trying to tell y'all Americans for a long time, like, ganja is the thing, right? It's healing. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong here. But to see who it's working for and who it's not. We have thousands upon thousands of black and brown people still in prison based on marijuana charges, right? But we have hundreds of people making money, and they don't look like us. Right, our people are trying to get into it, and I think they're breaking room here, which is great. But what about the people who are still in prison? Right, so it's the same thing. There are people in prisons, and they need help. We don't look at root causes of things. So instead of like making it to criminalize it in a way where all you do is throw somebody away, and you think you're throwing away the key because you're not, because they're gonna get out. What about dealing with the issue? Yeah. Dealing with what brought them to that point. That's what Europe does better than we do. All these people taking these trips across board to see how humane their system is and stuff like that, we could do the same thing. No, there's no such thing as a humane jail or prison, right? Not coined that little phrase there, but We can do better. We can treat people as we would like to be treated. Treat people and look at them as a human being and get them to acknowledge and recognize what harms they might have caused.
Donna Hylton with us, folks. You also have developed a college course based on your book. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
So I was fortunate and honored to be asked to be the first scholar in resident at Philander Smith University in Arkansas, and that's one of the first HBCUs in this country. So shout out to Philander. So with that, it was like, well, how am I going to go into this now neighborhood, and what am I going to bring, impart to these young people and people that are going to school? So I created a curriculum out of my book because, again, the focus is how do we take the harms and the tragedies that's happened within our lives, within our communities, neighborhoods, and turn them around and try to get something positive out of them. Because it can happen. It's like, what good thing can come out of, what was it, Nazareth?
Yeah.
Right? So it's that.
What good can come out of Nazareth?
What good can come out of Nazareth?
Something pretty good came out of Nazareth. We about to
came out of Nazareth.
Celebrate that during Christmas.
Right? Exactly. So we can create some good. And so, use my story as an example, and the stories that of people like in the book, and the show. And it actually, I was really honored and blessed to be around some amazing young people in Arkansas when I had that tenure, and the reasons why they were even in the social justice classes that they're in, because of what's been happening in the neighborhood, how they've been treated. They've seen their brother get killed, or gang war, all this stuff. So I see that I did a good thing by making it, a curriculum. So people can really share their truths. They can open up and talk and not be afraid, and I think that's one of the things that I recognize, that, me speaking as boldly as I do, it allows others, and men too, young men, older men, come out and say things like, thank you. I just had somebody on Twitter say, thank you, I read your book. Mm-hmm. He was a victim, you know what I mean? And he happens to be gay, but he couldn't get past it. And with my book, he's getting past it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and my truth, and so I'm thankful for that. So,
Little Piece of Light also is the name of a nonprofit.
Absolutely. So I feel really honored and proud of myself, mm-hmm. as a black woman and going through all these obstacles and hurdles. And my sisters are in the room with me. Tracy Mendelson, shout out. Tanya Pierce, my partner in another part of the endeavor with our 501c3. Shout out. So yes, I created the 501, a Little Piece of Light organization, and the primary focus is women and girls who have been impacted by trauma, abuse, violence, and incarceration.
And you include in that transgender,
gender non-conforming. Mm-hmm. He identifies a woman. We don't discriminate. There's no discrimination. We don't care.
Yeah. But I mean, that's important too, because absolutely. Look how far the restorative justice movement has come just in the past 20 years. And I remember when it first started, it didn't even include the LGBT community.
Yeah. And that's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we just didn't know. People just didn't know. And we've all evolved to give a full understanding about the different ways. Let's not assume that everyone knows your story. And again, I alluded to this, folks, but our sister Donna, you in prison for 27 years. Yes. Nelson Mandela was in prison 27 years too, I think.
Yeah, I had the honor of celebrating his 100th last year, Global Citizen in South Africa. Yeah.
You went to South Africa?
Yep, I was a Global Citizen, South Africa.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And I went to Winnie's house, because it's really Winnie's house, because she was running stuff.
That's right.
Dope.
God bless her.
What touched me is really the bullet holes that they shot through the house is still in the walls outside, and trying to just, how do you shoot into a home that not because you want her, but the children that are there. How do you do that? And we see that all across the world. I don't understand. You're justified to kill, but another person, you're trying to show another person it's not right to kill. It's morally and ethically wrong to do it, but it's justified when you do it because you wear a badge, or you wear or you have some kind of role of authority. Come on. Nonsense.
Yeah. But the bottom line is 27 years is 27 years, however you look at it.
Yes, it is.
You were charged with murder and kidnapping.
Yeah, not the other stuff. Let people create this Wikipedia page, rape, sodomy, torture, and all this stuff. Those are charges, and I would have been charged with them. So not excusing or not saying like it's better, but like let's get it clear. It's two charges, kidnapping and murder, which I had no, I couldn't do anything about. Basically, I was a victim myself.
You were there. You were just there.
I was there, and I was a victim too. Be very clear. I was a victim. I was the youngest one, adolescent, basically, because I went through the system. I was an adolescent.
How old were you at the time?
I had just turned 20.
Gotcha. Okay.
So people feel like, I was led in to believe something, and like any starving young person who was traumatized and trying to find a way for herself, it's like, okay. And I made a wrong choice saying, okay, I'll walk in and say I, walked in on something and that's it. No, as soon as I did that, it was already a kidnapping. I had already walked into a kidnapping and gun pulled out, nothing. I had no autonomy and I was raped into crime myself. It was horrible.
Tell us about the abuse and trauma you endured leading up to that.
So I was born on the island of Jamaica, and I had, I think, I classified my mother as bipolar in my book because, understanding it now, I see that she had those tendencies strongly. So she gave me, or really, they bought me a childless couple, and they brought me to this country. I was 7.5. By the time I turned 9.5.
Well, you said they bought. Did you say bought?
Yeah, monies were exchanged, and definitely paperwork was doctored. So you could do. I come from this so-called third world country of Jamaica, so you could do a lot of things, right? And how do you adopt a child that's growing up with, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So it's just you could see the writing's kind of on the wall with that. But by the time I turned 9.5, and I was with this couple now who I was told to call mom and dad, I already knew my mom and didn't have a father figure around, but definitely knew my mother and my family in Jamaica. So that was off because I was saying, well, when am I going to go to Disneyland? Because that's why they said they brought me here as a child. That's what the talk was, and I'm like, yay, excited. They never brought me there, but. So by the time I was 9.5, my now father figure was taking me to a closet and just in the bedroom and almost daily like raping me, sodomizing me. And so it just kept happening. By the time I was 14, thought I was going to get some help from an older man and that lived in the building. Finally, somebody was like, I know something's wrong. I'll help you. I believed. Just needed help, get away. At the time, I had one of the most prestigious scholarships in New York to go to a high school in Delaware. That didn't happen because I ran away, couldn't take it anymore. But that person turned into become my worst nightmare.
Right, he did too.
And it just kept happening. And I was still a kid. I was a teenager. Everything that happened to me in my life, and I emphasize this, everything that happened to me in my life happened to me when I was 19 and a half, like 20. So I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like I didn't see how I could get out of it. The adults I went to for helped me. They turned into abusers as well, or just turned their backs. Like we don't listen to children. We don't listen to people that are getting hurt, especially women. And so that's why I stand up so strongly. We need to listen to our children. We need to listen to people. We need to listen to women. Yeah.
I'm sure you see people like I do who have been through what you've been through, but they don't look like you, and they don't carry themselves like you. I mean, you got it together. How?
By the grace of God. I mean, people ask me that question. They're like, first of all, you don't look like somebody who spent 27 years in prison. I don't know what that person looks like because I've seen a lot look like me. I don't think like I'm an exception. You know what I mean? Just to be clear, my sister Tanya over here has also done some time. You wouldn't see it, but she's a businesswoman. You know what I mean? So it's like you never know who's who, what's
Y'all
what.
the best dressed formerly incarcerated people I ever seen. But go ahead, that's fine.
But I think one of the things
if they had a fashion show or pageant for best dressed returning people, I'm not saying to put nobody else down, but y'all,
yeah. Well,
but you gotta. You just don't walk out that way.
No.
I mean,
because
talk to us about how you.
Because I think one of the things is, and that's why I call it a little piece of light, because I've always held on to something. There was always something in me. No, there's something different. There's something. This is not who I am. This is not my life. And finally figuring out, getting past adolescence and young women, just healing myself. And sadly, it had to happen when I was in prison, but it happened. right? And I had to look at it, and I was like, why am I owning everything that ever happened to anything that a person ever did to me? I owned it like it was my fault, but I wasn't comfortable with it. Something was saying, no, it's not true. And so I worked on self. I did a lot of self-healing, analyzing. I mean, just like reflections and all that stuff. And it was difficult. I was a kid, but I held on to that. And because I really wanted at some point to like get the world to see, because when I recognized who was in prison with me, it bothered me. It hurt me to the core.
When you recognize who was in there with you, like who?
Women who have been so hurt, so abused. I mean, and no one cared. Even, I had women who were there for hurting, killing their mother. Because the mother, and it's not excusing, but my God, how do you treat your child? How do you hurt your child in the ways that I heard those women talk? But I know, because I was one of them. You know what I mean? But I removed myself from myself and saw them and just was like, this got to change. Something's wrong here. So I just organically became this person. But it really comes from determination, self-determination, and recognizing that your value and your worth, which I had to go around the mucky stuff, and I had to forgive myself first and then forgive everyone that ever hurt me.
Whatever became of your mother?
My natural mother?
Yeah.
She died. Actually, this month makes it 2014, 5 years.
Is that right? Did you all ever reconnect?
Nope. She was in Jamaica still, and I couldn't travel because I was on parole, and I couldn't get there.
Did you all ever speak again?
Nope. I struggle with that, but yeah, I believe that she knows that I definitely forgave her, love her. And
she was sick. She was not well.
Yeah, my mother. I could tell. I know, as an adult knows. And then she turned not physically well as well. But like back then when I was a little girl with her, no, she wasn't. And she was a dark skin. We looked just alike. But she was a very more dark-skinned version of me, right? Or I'm the lighter-skinned version of her. So she was a pretty dark-skinned woman. But back in the 60s, 50s, 40s and stuff, there was still that mentality. And then you have people taking advantage and and she had to do what she had to do to survive. And you never know how that plays on a person's mental health, you know what I mean? Her psyche. So, not excusing her stuff, but you got to understand it. There was some issues there.
How much has your faith played a role in all of this?
Strongly. Faith. Interestingly enough, I was always searching to find where I fit in, where I belong, whatever, until one day I said, no, I don't need to search for that. Just be. Yeah. Just simply be, and just to know God that you know. So the God that I found or came to understand is simply nothing but a God of love. Period, point blank. And I've had some near-death experiences. I almost died 4 years ago from a stroke. Before that, I had some stuff inside. I done went through some stuff, and some of it is in my book. But the God that I started standing in front of, I knew there was nothing that's not God, that's not love. We do the other stuff.
Speaking of mothers, that's my mother's favorite scripture. God is love.
God is love.
And in the old days when folks used to actually sit down and have dinner together, people don't do that anymore. Sit down, have a meal in front of dinner, say we all go to McDonald's now. But at my grandmother's table, you bless the food, and then everybody would say a scripture, a verse. God is love. And my mother would always say, everybody else would say other stuff, but she always just would say, God is love. God is love. And
it's true.
So that's real. Donna, just recently you lost a cousin.
Yes.
To domestic violence, correct?
Yes. My cousin Andrea McDonald. It's a national case now in San Antonio, Texas. It was a domestic violence situation. Her husband, for whatever his reasons are, right? However he sees things, he murdered her in front of sees allegedly. Murdered her in front of, allegedly, their young daughter, my young cousin, who's autistic, 8 years old. Well, she was 7 then, and dismembered her as well, burnt her up, and buried her bones or tried to hide her bones under a whole dead cow that had recently died on a farm not too away because, it's Texas, our ranch. And so, by the grace of God, she was found because that wasn't supposed to happen. There were search parties she was missing from February 28th, March 1st, found her in July. Just saying. So, And now the FBI, released her body, and so my aunt was able, to like help with the, put the funeral together along with her father. But there's still a lot of messy stuff going on. But that's why I do the work that I do. That's why I do the work that I do, because domestic violence, why do we think that it's okay to like hurt somebody because either they don't want to be with us or because you feel like you have power and control? You can, it makes no sense. But then we know like that's the part of the healing that we got to get to.
Yeah.
We got to get to that, because if a person doesn't recognize the harm again,
right.
I mean, you spread this. I mean, it's like a disease. It spreads. So let's make healing a disease. Let's spread that.
That is such a tragic story. But yet, as I was hearing you tell it, I'm almost wondering what was going on in the brother's mind. And
my cousin, I found out my cousin was trying to get away from him for quite some time. And she told people, she told her best friends and other people, if anything ever happens to me, look at Andre. Anything ever happens to me, because she'd been trying, she couldn't get out of it. And my cousin was doing so well. She has this very, great assisted living business in San Antonio. People love her in San Antonio. I mean, they would not give up looking for her. These people were serious, and I just watched the way in which they embraced, her, the tragedy, my aunt, my little cousin, the family. It was just amazing to see, but it took for this, horrible tragedy to occur for you to see the love and genuineness that she gave to people. Like, I found out from Andreen that she every day was intentional, that she exhibited some form of love and empathy and caring to people.
Right.
And that's amazing.
How is the little girl? How is she?
So she's autistic, and so they call her, it's not mute autistic, it's, I forgot the other one, where she's not able to like really form the sentences well. She's brilliant. And she's done things, prior. We're trying to not get her to focus on that, like not even talk about her mother. It's like, it's so hard, when you have a child, like how do you not do that? But because it's still so horrible, and you could tell she witnessed something because she has a doll. She was taken into the back of the house. She's still in that house. Taken it to the back of the house, which is a garden and outdoors, right, in Texas. She put the doll on the ground and then put some twigs and things on top of the doll, and then said, fire. Come on.
She's still in the same house.
Yes. That's her mother's house. That's her house. It should be her house. Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
But it's like, in this case, thankfully, she is autistic. Because, autistic children, people, really don't have the emotions like we have. Right. They don't exhibit any kind of emotions the way we do, those of us that are not autistic. Doesn't mean they don't understand and know something, but they're kind of disconnected from that part, which in this case is a godsend.
So here this child is, she's in that cycle of trauma and violence.
Yeah. Now she's got no mother, no father. He's facing, his trial starts February. It's Texas. They're probably, and I don't know this, but they're probably going to look for the death, capital punishment. Right. So it's just horrible all the way around.
Yeah. Andrea McDonald.
Andrea McDonald, say her name.
Yeah, say her name. And the funeral just happened?
I just came back. It just happened this past weekend.
All right. Lastly, long term, ultimately, what would you like to see the nonprofit do? With and for and through people?
So as I build out the not-for-profit, I would like to see it help as many women, young women, transgender, LGBTQIA, whatever, women identifying folk as much as possible. We look forward to like where we're projected goal right now is to like for this coming year is like 50 to like maybe 150, right? Because we're looking at women that have been through some stuff, part of the system in shelters, wherever they are, women coming out, but especially with DVSJA, to be able to do some extra added support stuff that's not here. We don't have enough for women. We don't have enough for women. Can't overemphasize that enough. We don't have enough. So I'd like to add to what's here, do some workshop enhancements, build their leadership so they can shape and form policy, push these legislations that we have to get through and create some that are necessary for not just themselves, but for their communities.
Yeah. Website?
My website is, there's two. There's DonnaHylton.com, but there's also a littlepieceoflight.net.
Okay.
Also, we have a Facebook page now for A Little Piece of Light, and also my own Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You have to build all that.
Yeah. She's everywhere, folks. We so appreciate you coming in, and
we accept donations.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
tax deductible now that we're
a 501, right?
Absolutely.
And so, folks, that's important in terms of the work that she's doing, continuing to do. Always so good to see you. You look great.
Thank you. Thanks, brother.
And keep up the good work. Thank you. And anything we can do to always be supportive, we want to do that.
Appreciate that.
You are folks. This is a shining example of a lot of us think we have problems. We're gonna it's gonna be a bad day. It's raining outside. No, that's not. Donna has overcome a far greater deal more than most of us could ever imagine. And she's a shining example of what can happen when you do have faith, when you do believe in yourself, when you do admit the trauma you've been through. Because some of us are too good to admit where we've been and what we've been through.
We still hold some stuff in there. That's that thing, that shame and embarrassment.
Right.
So I get that. So it's hard. So, I come from a harm reduction lens. Like, let you do it at your own pace, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to be right here.
Yeah,
we're going to be right here to help support you.
Right. And that's why she's important. She's an example of how far you can come, and also an example of self-forgiveness. Because some of us, know what we've done and can't forgive ourselves, and therefore don't leave the space for others to forgive us. Amen. So she has a ministry here. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Donna Hylton, everybody.